Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Freedom Faction, Noise Era, whichever one you prefer, and we're going to be looking at a number of things which suggest the idea that yes, we're living in the time frame to where we're seeing Babylon America collapse, to where we're seeing our great nation, as prophesied, collapse. And I'm not saying that America is specifically Babylon. I believe that there is a Babylonian spirit. What I'm going to be looking at specifically, like I said in this episode, is things such as civil unrest, destabilization, Hillary Clinton being the actual embodiment of Babylon the whore. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So whenever I put this episode together, I had to think basically how I wanted to get the message across to you guys, the way that I wanted to convey what it is I'm trying to say, right? What's even better now is I've started writing down my notes, or at least writing down thoughts. But what we're going to be discussing in a number of ways, like I said before, is things such as civil unrest, destabilization, either with the economy, with the sociological or the psychological aspects, or even things like the culture clash. You see, there's a number of things which suggest to it. And initially, I had called this episode Collapsing America, but I wanted to take a deeper look at things, to kind of come at things from a kind of skewed angle, so we could get a bigger picture. So with that being said, let's talk about how we as Americans have been brought down to a third world nation status. Things like the oppositional defiant disorder, made up diseases, were ranked 14th in the world for education and 29th in the world for math and sciences. So what I wanted to look at particularly here, right, is some of the things that contribute to us collapsing. Right there, New Mexico sues Colorado over huge 2015 mine waste spill. Things like that. Things along those lines. So where we're basically talking about our infrastructure being underneath attack. I'll put it to you this way. I have a list of things I want to go through first before I kind of tackle the meat of the actual episode. So, to paint the picture for you guys, things like the Flint Water Crisis. People are experiencing lead poisoning. It's because the pipes are roughly almost 50 years old, if not older. They're rusting, right? So what does lead poisoning do? It causes hair loss. It causes rashes. It causes neurological disorders. This is also occurring in Chicago as well. And for the people that are listening right now, another video popped up where the Army Corps of Engineers approves yet another illegal pipeline through endangered ecosystems. This is where they have the Sabile Trail running through North Florida, I think it is. Yeah, North Florida. But I'll get into that later. But back to the Flint Water Crisis. Things like hair losses, rashes, neurological disorders. It's all because they're experiencing lead poisoning. Right? So right there in Louisiana, remember the flood? It displaced over 8,000 people. And how the Cajun Navy started stepping up and doing more than the actual Navy. And now the government was set to regulate the Cajun Navy. And the Louisiana citizens are pissed. It's because they're destroying the homes. The flood is destroying the entire area. And whenever the citizens decide to do something, that is whenever the government decides to step in. You see, you want to explain to me that that scenario, FEMA. I mean, didn't they bring in 10,000 refugees already? And they're planning to bring in what is it? I think 200,000 more. And I think they rocketed that number. Let me keep going down this list. So going back to things like the Sabile Trail in Florida. I mean, look at what's happening in Florida. The whole Zika spraying. Them spraying nailed. And I mean, I'm sure you guys already know that some of the stuff that they're actually spraying, some of the chemicals that they're spraying for the Zika virus in Florida, nailed. Some of that stuff actually it's getting linked to autism. I mean, women that were pregnant prior to, look at this, 215 million gallons, sorry, not galleons, 215 million gallons of radioactive water threaten drinking water in Florida. This is in Mulberry, Florida. It's home to a giant sinkhole that caused 215 million gallons of radioactive water to leak into the state's supply of drinking water. The contamination occurred when a sinkhole appeared at a phosphate fertilizer plant near Tampa, which damaged the stack where wastewater was stored. This filtered into the state's aquifer system, which supplies water to residents, making the water contain, and I'm sure I'm going to pronounce this wrong, phosphogypsum. It is spelled PHOSPHGYPSUM. Okay, it's classified as a slightly radioactive and is a byproduct of the creation of the fertilizers. This is due to the naturally occurring uranium and radium in the phosphate ore. The contaminated water also flows into springs used for activities like snorkeling and swimming. Mosaic, the fertilizer company responsible for the contamination, has kept the sinkhole leak concealed for the better part of 3 weeks. For the better part of 3 weeks, guys. Let that sink in. So while we're freaking out about all the stuff that's going on with the Dakota Access Pipeline, and I'll get to them soon too. I'll get to that whole thing as well, because basically what I'm trying to talk about, or break down you guys in so many different ways, is how we are underneath an organized attack that cripples our country. Okay? Mosaic, the fertilizer company responsible for the contamination, has kept the sinkhole leak concealed for the better part of 3 weeks, leaving many residents worry that there is no risk to the public. Clearly there's not any risk to the public. And as I believe, there's not any coincidences, especially these days. Right? So whenever we're even looking at things like Florida, the things that are going on there, like I said, the spilling of 215 million gallons of radioactive water, the Zika spraying, this is biowarfare. This is a way for them to try to sterilize us. For the people that are looking, there is a article in the news ticker where it was talking about how Obama talks about climate change in the White House, and on the video feed there is a actual spraying of chemtrails, mentioning how NASA as well as the United Nations admitted that geoengineering and chemtrails were both occurring. What it is I'm trying to illustrate to you guys here is we are underneath an orchestrated attack that is not only national. You see, this is an international accordance. This is an international agreement. All right, but I'm trying to, like I said, illustrate it for you guys here in America. But all right, let's look at things like New Mexico and the 2015 Animus river spill, where heavy metal water equivalent to 60,000 barrels. 60,000 barrels, guys. Think about that. 60,000 barrels of heavy metal water. Probably not as much as 215 million gallons, but all of these things add up, guys. Think about this. The environmental crew had a job: pump out and treat contaminated water at the Gold King mine in southern Colorado. Instead, when the workers for the Environmental Protection Agency used heavy equipment to enter the defunct mine on August 5th, 2015, a leak sprung, a massive one. The EPA has taken full responsibility and announced that it was temporarily ceasing work at other mines to avoid a repeat. Water tainted with heavy metal gushed from Gold King into nearby Animus River, turning into a solid mustard color. It flowed downstream for dozens of miles, crossing state lines. It made life miserable for those who depended on the river water. Think about that, guys. The number of gallons of heavy metal filled wastewater in the U.S. Geological Survey says spilled into the Animus River. And the number is 3 million gallons. So not nearly as much as 215, clearly. But 3 million gallons spilling into the river, guys. And then I'm not even done yet. Right? So let's go back over here to the south. Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee all declared states of emergency due to what? Another oil leak. And there's no way this is coincidence. As I've said before, with everything going on, this is clearly not coincidence, okay? September 17th, this is whenever these things happen, right? And the reason I'm trying to tie in for you guys all these different things, all the different ways we need to look at how they're trying to collapse America and how our empire has been prophesied as if it was almost manifested by Rome, you see. What it is I'm trying to show for you guys is that now we're entering the time frame to where they're trying to bring down our country. This is why we're seeing so much chaos. This is why we're seeing so much destabilization. As I've said before, this is why we're being brought to a third world nation status. Okay? So if we have 3 states declaring states of emergency after another pipeline leak, whenever we just got confirmation that the people standing up in North Dakota for blocking the illegal construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline, we have 3 more burst. This is, like I said, an orchestrated attack. And at the same time, simultaneously, they're building that Sabile Trail, the new trail. The Army Corps of Engineers is building that new trail, you see? And this is where we're at. All of this ties in to geoengineering. Like, if we don't think that this is eventually going to have an effect on the world, what I would consider the aspect of man-made climate change, them purposely destroying things such as pipelines, I wouldn't be surprised if we had a pipeline explosion in New Mexico, simply because I remember a few months back how we had heard of them detaining a terrorist somewhere in New Mexico near a pipeline. You see. So whether or not these people are radical agents or suicide bombers or people that have even been captured, so to speak, or compromised, that's up for another debate. More of these types of organized things are going to happen simply because they see the effect that alternative news and alternative media is having. Look at how fast people went to react to the Dakota Access Pipeline. Look at how many people were arrested falsely on trumped up charges. Look at how many people had to stand there. This was an alternative media victory, guys. This was an alternative media success because we made that happen. We forced their hand. We made them tell the truth. And now, what have they done? They've sprung more problems upon us. More issues. And as I said before, these all tie in, if you ask me, to geoengineering and socio-engineering to some degree as well. I mean, if the technology is becoming so cheap, so readily accessible, this is why they want to try to put in internet censorship. Excuse me. Especially next year, or next month, sorry, my bad. Because they see how we're able to unify with it and how we're using their technology against them. Right there, Flint residents told that their children could be taken away if they don't pay for the city's poison water. And this is at the start of the year, right? While over there on the news ticker, we're seeing that Native American Standing Rock protesters are proven right as 3 oil pipelines spill polluted water into the U.S. rivers in only 1 week. 1 week. All of these things are somewhat connected when you start thinking about it. This is them, as I've said before, trying to shut down the country. Trying to use things like this so that whenever we do want to actually try to restore some semblance of sanity to our country, they can sit there with their hands and they can try to act as if they're the saviors. Right there, the economic hell that's been left for millennials and everyone else. Who's gonna fix all these different types of things? And that's another thing I'll try to talk into or jump into later. Who's gonna pay for all these different things? Where is this coming from? Why are all of these things being brought down now? What I think most people don't take a step back and look at is that a lot of these things come in waves, come in cycles. You see, it's never just a singular event. A lot of these different things are interconnected. As I said before, with the Flint Water Crisis, even with the Chicago Water Crisis, people were reporting how they knew their water was tainted, right? And then what do we have happening? The construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline and the Sabal Trail Pipeline. You see, what else does this say? Whenever we literally have to work off of our back, what does it say when we have to harvest our own oil instead of getting it imported? Okay, that's dollar devaluation. Our country is collapsing. It's because maybe it is the economic squeeze, maybe it is a number of things that are getting to us. Maybe it's that, maybe it's the escalation of racial division. What do you think the purpose is of escalating all this violence? Or at least trying to stoke the tension in the air, escalating all the racial tension. Superficial politics, which truly degrades instead of benefits us. The reality of the situation is that we're in a season of instability and we're making irrational emotional decisions. The renaissance we were supposed to have is being usurped. I've said this a number of times. As I said before, this geoengineering, look at how it all ties into somewhat parts of social engineering. Look at the things that they've done as their response. Facebook imposing prissy American censorship. Obama saying that we need to be bound by international laws and give up control. Abdicating, basically, America. Passing us off. Well, our country is experiencing a collapse. As I said before, it's an economic collapse. This is being masqueraded as a civil war, racial war. And that's what they want. That's why I had to come at it from this angle first, so we could see all of the different factors that come into play when we're talking about just this. You see, the idea of them collapsing our country. And what does it mean? To move on, basically. To bring forth, like I said, Obama tying us to international agreements. Right there, Obama pushes agenda to federalize local law enforcement in wake of attack on police, and that was back in July. And he's been toting that the whole year, while he's also saying, literally just yesterday, how we need to be bound by international laws. Right? This is all a part of Agenda 2030. This is all a part of their new agenda. Habitat 3, I think it is. Sustainable living. They want to try to get us into these hubs. In the cities and the domes. Places that can be easily monitored. They want to put us on global, international mandates. You see, they want to get it to a point to where everyone has a global standard, to where everyone abides by global laws. But we won't ever be let out of our cages, out of our nation. And this is why things like a wall, security checks, a wall in the UK, a wall here in America, clearly a wall in Mexico. They want to put up these walls so no one can get out. Doesn't mean that no one can get in. Who can get out? You see. Want to migrate people to the city while collapsing our infrastructure. That's why I always ask, what are we producing? What do we make? Right there, France bans plastic cups, plates, and cutlery. See, they want it to where they can monitor the masses, where they're basically surveying society. Chicago State University sends layoff notices to all employees amid Illinois budget battle. And that was back in February. This is why I'm saying that we're 14th in education and 29th in math and sciences. With things such as Common Core, Google even, and now them trying to pigeonhole, memory hole, and throw away all kinds of different information. Education, as we know it, will change. Our infrastructure is changing, and this is what I try to illustrate in so many different ways when I talk about the socio-economic reformation. This is what we're going through. The transitional time frame. And I'm not talking transhumanism or, anything of that like in this episode. But I often say that we're in the trans age. We're in a transitional age. Out from the collapse of America, the Fourth Reich Phoenix will rise. You see, I'm talking in too much code. But they basically want to destroy America so they can rebuild her in the likeness of this global standard. You see. This is why they're shutting down coal plants, because it's a part of the climate change agenda. California has already talked about cutting back on the emissions that they're doing. Oregon has a driver tax. Washington has the carbon tax. You see, their whole premise for doing this is so that they can destroy America and act like the saviors, destroy the world and act like the saviors. Right there, chemtrails caught in the act. And for the people that are listening, you can actually see them making chemtrails, spraying them. And I mean, there's hundreds of videos out there. You guys can see them as well. But in this video, in particular, you can see them being made. What it is I'm trying to illustrate for you guys is the fact that we're living in a society to where these people are pulling a grand magnum opus, a grand Hegelian dialectic, to where clearly they're making the problem. Clearly they are the issue. Clearly this is a problem. But on the flip side, they will come through with things like Agenda 2030, like California, where they promise to cut back on carbon emissions, or Washington, where they have a carbon tax, to where they do subtle things that align themselves with this global treaty. You see, Obama seeks to push globalism in the last 6 months of presidency, and I'm pretty sure we can tell from all of his different actions, and that's exactly what it is I'm trying to illustrate to you guys. They're trying to destroy the idea of nationalism that we have and replace it with globalism. He himself even bashed patriotism. But to get back to the point, them collapsing the country, our own country, right there, the Great Lake Wars, water wars have begun after U.S. officials approved drawing 30 million liters per day. And I'm sure you guys heard how the owner of Nestle believes that water is a commodity not deserved by humans. And this is probably why we have so many people at the Dakota Access Pipeline, you see. What we're talking about really is the economic squeeze. There's roughly 64% of people who are in the labor force. Where's the other 36%? You see. Where are the rest of the numbers? Where are the rest of the people? Is it because of the socio-economic reformation? Things have to change. The things are changing. People still have times for guns, drugs, pharmacia, alcohol, all of these different things. You see, just because of the times that we're in, they can tell that we live in unstable times. I mean, and this is what I'm going to start doing more of. Regardless of how people feel, I have to start posting more of these attacks and more of these different things that are going on. I might not, have the time to go into them in depth and expose them. This is why we have, great people such as yourself, others that are listening, that take the time to do that. But just today, like I said before, more of these attacks are happening. Just today, a mass jihadi entered an elementary school with it and tried to cause chaos. I mean, even if he is, an MK Ultra, an SSRI, or anything like that, that's up for debate. I'm not here to talk that right now. What it is I am here to talk about is look at the times that we're in, guys. I wish I could say that 10, 20 years ago, this wasn't happening, but 10 years ago it was happening. 20 years ago, maybe not so much. 30 years ago, not so much. These days, they're happening in shorter time span, like I said, with Manhattan, New Jersey, Minnesota, and all kinds of other different things that are going on, guys. This is because of the time that we're in. America has been weakened. We are in depression, recession rates. This is why people are asking for extra jobs. Doubled the hours, basically. People are angry. People are very, very angry. It's our dollar being devalued. It's because of taxes, things like Obamacare. You see, all of the different things, the economic hell that we've been left. The hell that we don't even get to see, basically, or the heaven that we don't even get to know. All these things are a byproduct, as I've said before, of destabilization. All this is occurring because of the fact that we've been given debt, or we're in massive debt by China, or we're in massive debt through the Saudis, or because we're just basically debt slaves. Our country is in a debt slave position. Right there, the FBI is manufacturing terrorism cases on a greater scale than ever. As they were busted, the FBI attempted to lure the Orlando shooter into a different terror plot in 2013. Right? I've talked about this at a number of times, guys. Number of times. How they're just being radicalized, how they're being used, how they're being put forward as agents, as sacrifices, agenda advancers. This is the culture clash. And while we have all of these other economic issues going on, back in July, John Kerry said that we will meet Obama's goal of 10,000 Syrian refugees by September 30th. And we met that goal. This is why I'm talking. They're saying more in wake of the attacks, because this is an organized system, an organized takedown. This is why even Pope Francis has said it. The only way to combat this is to come at them with open arms. Basically, more of his rhetoric. That hospitality to refugees is our greatest security against terrorism. You see, it's because things like this, because we're politically correct, we're economically weakened, and we don't have the moral high ground, that these types of things are happening. Because it's easier to get drunk and high instead of save and invest and create. People are angry, pissed, drunk, and ignorant of larger issues. And it's also because of our American stereotype that Obama offends us, even though he's the most New World Order puppet that we've ever seen. You see? Right there, you guys paying attention to what's going on in Venezuela. Stock up, be self-reliant. They are manipulating us into a global collapse. As I've said before, this is back in May. As we have over here, new report proves U.S. law enforcement are preparing for rioting on a national scale. With another attack saying that the lockdown was lifted at a U.S. base near Washington. No threat was found. That was back in June. The attacks are happening in higher frequency simply because of the state that we're in. Our barriers have been broken down. People are out of work. People don't know what to do. People are relying, so to speak, on the government for answers. And they keep giving you their answer, that they're going to keep manufacturing terrorism, that they're going to try to keep controlling chaos. They will use our obvious weak country, as well as other countries like Venezuela, as an example and reason to implement more authoritarian measures. They want chaos to make order. You see, this is why in so many different ways, I'm trying to explain it to you guys, that poverty has no race, okay? Poverty has no race. This is why they're trying to get us all on a government response, on a government mindset, to where we think the government knows best. Where they're abolishing kratom with cheap alcohol, right? Where they're prescribing MDMA. and Adderall, Oxycontin. They want chaos. They want blood. They want drugs. They want disorder. Is this not the work of the devil? Really, at some point, you have to start asking those kinds of questions. These people are purposely destabilizing our country so that they can implement things like Facebook's safety check, letting people know who's okay and who's not. Like sending wanted alerts to people's phones, or actively monitoring social feeds for terrorists and those who are politically dissident. Right there. U.S., Canada, and Mexico vow to get half their electricity from clean power by 2025. This is why, as I said before at the start of the show, they have to shut down coal plants, why they have to shut down coal mines. What's the big deal about pipelines? Oh, right. Well, they could explode. They're running through pretty much coastal areas of the country, all crisscrossed throughout the nation. What happens if there's a rupture? Right? What happens if someone's becoming one of those eco-terrorists instead of an eco-defender? And I'll get into that briefly. This is why they want to have smart meters to enforce those energy regulations. As I said before, California trying to cut back on their emissions, bring them down to 1990 levels. This is why, as I said just a second ago, with with the North American Union, Canada, Mexico, and America, bringing them down. This is why DARPA is also releasing their aerial urban drone surveillance program, or calculating your threat score ranking. It's because amid all this terrorism, all this chaos, all this madness, this is what they're trying to implement. More authoritarian measures. Illinois institutes chilling new mandate for schools to teach children how to submit to police. I talked about this in another episode the other day about how teachers in France are now being given emergency bracelets to alert individuals, or at least alert authorities whenever they think a possible terrorist attack might occur. Although it might seem outlandish now, but they'll expand it to say when a child is acting up. You know, Francois Hollande has already said, get used to the terror attacks. They're going to keep happening. This is why so many different things tie into just looking at how we're collapsing, and how it is an orchestrated collapse, and how they're trying to get us in line with the UN, with the New World Order. They want to be able to use these types of things, as I said before, the civil unrest, to implement these new types of global authoritative measures, so to speak. Because all of this civil unrest, this is because of, like I said, the economic squeeze, because of what we're feeling here in America. Because 64% of people are out of jobs. This is because we're in a crippled state. And then whenever you add on the fact of the culture clash, of them bringing in swaths of refugees legally, I mean, at least they're saying that they will try to, at least. When you add that on, and then all the other different factors of how we can't even take care of our own country, that's a deeper issue. And I'll get into that momentarily. But to jump back to our weakened state, or at least the idea of eco defenders, using all this chaos to implement something new. And I saw this briefly rear its head in the news in relation to climate change and activists, Black Lives Matter activists. Right there. Soros' new memo says that the crisis refugee is the new normal. It gives new opportunities for global influence. Okay? Climate change, as I've said before, is their terminology for explaining half of the things that are going on, or trying to discuss the things that are going on, you see. With these new global opportunities, and tying it into one of the things I saw rear its ugly head, these climate change activists, these eco-defenders, right? We're seeing the birth of them at the Dakota Access Pipeline, and we'll see, more people at the Sabine Trail, at these other economic events that are going on. All right, I'm sure we've heard of them as well. We know they're environmentalists, hippies, people that go out there and basically fight for the rights of the planet. Okay, they're legitimate and they have right cause. However, in the UK, they shut down an airport as a test, if you ask me. And here in America, they shut down the construction of the pipeline. There will be more events like this that are related, so in an ecocentric fashion, so to speak, not ego, eco. And what this will do is this will trigger other people. This will trigger social justice warriors to change their mindset of looking at the bigger issues, so to speak. And as I said before, trying to explain what was going on earlier with the actual with all these other things that are going on, the Flint Water Crisis, Louisiana, Florida, New Mexico, Alabama, all these other things, them shutting down the country. Basically, what this ties into is the urban agenda, is into climate change. I've always talked in depth about how basically, we'll be chastised for liking Mustangs. We'll be chastised for liking burgers. We'll be chastised for liking any of the things that we know and have come to love, simply because the world is changing. Times are changing. These eco-defenders, as I said before, even with the smart meters, they will monitor how much you've consumed and how much you've produced. This is why we have Tesla coming out, creating a backup battery basically for the world. It's because we're changing, as I said before, over to an Agenda 2030 world. A reality that is electric based. Not the electric universe, we're already living in that, but a reality to where everything is on the grid, that is powered by electricity, to where it's documentable by numbers, basically. Jeez. That is insane to think about the things they could do. This will effectively create the green police. The people that'll tax you, as I said before, the people that'll watch you. The people that'll monitor whenever it is you've gone over your limit. Whenever they're able to notice that you haven't done so and so, or you've used too much, or you've driven too much, as in the case of Oregon or California, saying that you've used too much energy, or somehow Washington realizing that you've got too much carbon, you see. And this is what they'll implement, these eco-defenders, Right now, boom, right there. Switzerland set to reject the green economy initiative. Right now, with these people, we're seeing the birth of them. Excuse me. We're seeing the start of what would be considered eco-activism or neo-eco-activism because of things like social media and the world. People are able to report on anything at any location and make it a deal. And this is what will happen more. I will definitely be watching these types of stories more. But basically what this is saying how the world is more important than yourself. I've talked about this as well on my episode where I talked about the establishing Earth consciousness to where we're basically being forced this kind of compassion into the planet. But that is already another episode entirely. More of these types of false flags will occur, as I said, to advance these types of agendas, to move forward the idea that we need to either A, de-arm the population, or B, diversify the population. According to Homeland Security's Inspector General, at least 858 immigrants from foreign countries that pose national security risks, as well as those from foreign countries with high immigration fraud who had numbers to have them deported, were, quote, mistakenly granted citizenship. And this is amid all the other attacks that we're having here in the country. It's because we have people like George Soros and the Open Society Foundation that are pushing this immigration invasion. This is the climate change that they're speaking of. It's because we the citizens will have to pay. Seriously, like literally, we will have to finance the invasion of our own country. And this is why people are upset inherently, because they know it and they don't want to talk about it in such in-depth ways. So instead we just get drunk and angry and start attacking the things that are immediate, the cops. We try to make it a cop issue, so that whenever we make it a cop issue, Obama has the right to go to the United Nations and say that he agrees with having a federalized local law enforcement or federalizing police. You see, this is them manipulating mayhem in so many different ways, in so many different diverse ways. Right there, Obama teams up with 15 corporations to import unlimited number of refugees. While he's over there dropping airstrikes on the media or on Syria. Importing his already reached goal of 10,000 Syrian refugees and requesting over 200,000 Syrian refugees after Minnesota and New Jersey. If you guys did not need any more evidence that we have been infiltrated, so to speak, or at least even captured, there you go. And this is not including the Orlando shooting and the San Bernardino shooting. As I said before, before I had even started this episode, that I think I forget what his name is, Christopher or Christopher Craig. He or Muhammad Allah Al-Qadir. He considers himself an Islamic jihadist, a radical. This is because we have these radicalized individuals, these radicalized Americans, these people that have no patriotic understanding or no patriotic duty, no sense of patriotism. You know, these people who have abdicated their own ideology, their own history, their own legacy, to adopt these new religions, to try to collapse this country. This is what happens, and I'm not trying to go into a theosophical debate, but this is what happens whenever you have all kinds of different religions and different incompatible things operating here within the country. We have all kinds of different ideologies that believe, yes, we should tear the system down, but then blame the system for what the system is doing, or get upset whenever the system doesn't aid them. We have a lot of paradoxical mindsets that when you look at these things and take a step back, you really have to start wondering what it is exactly we have going on in here. In this this crazy Babylonian America that we live in. It's because we are being handed over to a pagan, ecocentric world. Lucifer, Pan, Baphomet, however you want to look at it, the world is more important than you, right? Get lost in it. This is what they want. They don't want us to really look at things that are compatible. They don't want us to look at things that are spiritual. They don't want us to have greater truths or more understanding. They want us to have the world that they bestow upon us, to have the knowledge that they give us, to live the way that they want. And we've all been programmed to some degree. I can understand that. But what I can't understand is not doing something about it. I mean, as I said before at the start of the show, Hillary Clinton is the whore Babylon, drunk off of the blood of innocence. She represents the establishment. She represents globalism. Trump does too, to a degree. I mean, they're two sides of the same coin, when you think about it. Two sides of the same coin. Hillary Clinton's just been drunk and in the game a lot longer at a different angle. She's a career politician, while Donald Trump is a career entertainment man, a career businessman. These days, they're almost interchangeable, although they come from different disciplines. And I'm really not trying to go down this path. What it is I'm trying to illustrate to you guys is Hillary Clinton, someone who's probably never worked a hard day in her life, other than making, decisions and things like this. Staying drunk all the time, doing cocaine with Bill, you see? Having all kinds of mistresses in and out of her bed. She represents the establishment. She represents, she was Bill's cover. That's how crooked this woman is. I'm not going to sit here and berate how evil Hillary Clinton is, but I think the evidence is clear. She's stumbling, falling, going all over the place, having lazy eyes, having stuff fall out of her mouth, weird giblets, weird green giblet stuff, having body doubles. You got to think about this. This is the person that's supposed to be the leader of the free country, of the free world, or what's remaining of the free world. She's having brain farts. She can hardly have any what's it called? Any press conferences. Benghazi. Let's start there. I mean, she's been in the background of everything for quite some time. And this is why I say she's drunk off the blood of the innocents, because abortion is the number one thing killing us. These vaccines, they've pushed harder than ever for the past 2-3 years. She's in line with Obamacare. There are so many different things wrong with what I would consider Hillary Clinton. But she represents us, right? The most crooked, corrupt lady you could think of. And this is why she, as well as America, are collapsing. Because we're living in a time frame now to where things are rapidly changing towards a global, international mindset. A world where these people, these demons, really, these villains, these Luciferians, these Satanists, These are megalomaniacs. Maybe it's because they know their time is short. Maybe it's because the days are getting shorter. Maybe it's because of a number of different things going on. Who knows? But what I do know is that these are the enemies. These are those guys. We have been infiltrated. There is a spirit of evil roaming the world. And I'm not talking about the TV show Lucifer. I'm trying to explain to you guys that while it might seem all well and fine to bash these things and truly not look at them in depth, but we've also got to understand the times we're in and what these people want subsequently. We are seen as the problem. And this is why they're polluting our water. They're stoking fires. They're killing more people, like King Darren Seals. The man that even led protests in Ferguson. You see, they're trying to bring us, as I said before, to a point of subservience because of the economic squeeze, because of the state that we've been dragged into. And I know some of this might seem wild, and I know some of this might seem outlandish, but when you break it down and you truly understand what exactly it is they have in store and how some of it is already present. So you really can't deny it. You see, right there, Obama, now United Nations, calls for America to be bound by international laws and to give up control. You know, I can't really control, I really don't control any of the things that are going on in the ticker. I let them play, and I merely use them as points to jump off from other topics. So whenever these types of things line up, guys, either it's the statistics, because these are all different things. Either it's the statistics, the rotation, providence, however you would want to look at it. This is what I'm talking about whenever I say some of these things cannot be explained. By giving up control, this is what we mean by California Governor Jerry Brown signing new climate change measures, bringing down our carbon emissions, and the CDC's medical police state the right to detain anyone, force medical treatment and vaccinations. Because these are global things that are occurring. And this is how they would like to treat us, as if we were some sort of subservient child. Told to obey, told to do what they require of us. You see. This is why it literally only takes 2 generations of brainwashing, or at least 2 generations of social indoctrination, social culturing, however you want to look at social engineering, to write out some of the things that we wouldn't even think were an issue. I mean, look at things such as segregation, interracial marriages. We're getting over. I feel like we're getting over these things. I'm not sure if these are things for us to even get over. Integration. Having women in the workforce, things like this. 10, 20, if you ask your grandparents, they wouldn't have thought about these things. But then you introduce the idea of technology, social trending, and all the things that we're affected by these days. Clearly, there are different ways to indoctrinate us, to mind control us, and to basically enslave us. I'm not even going down that path as far as that reality. What it is I'm trying to show you guys is that through all of this chaos, they will use it to bring forth this new world order, and everything does have correlating factor. It might not seem like it now, but assuredly, there are things that do tie in together. I mean, there's no accident that Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are cousins. That most of the people that end up doing things in the presidency, or at least in politics, are related. Right there, New York Attorney General enlists thought police to fight climate change. It's because this is where we're going. They're using the technology while the infrastructure outside, the outside world is crumbling. They're using this technology to herd us into a hub, a city that can be controlled easily. These eco-defenders, these are the people who will pave the way for new authoritative measures on a global scale. Right there, Obama, we talk about climate change in the Situation Room. There's so many different things, like I said, guys, that come with this when you look at it. But that's all I really got for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. And as always, guys, stay vigilant. Real quick, before I close out for you guys, be sure to check out our audio version, which will also be in the description bar below. Let me know what you guys think, because apparently some people like to listen to the audio. But that's all I got for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. Stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noisera, Freedom Faction, out.